The Frame Center Podcast.
All right, so welcome to the Frame Center Podcast. Today, we got a special guest. I'm really excited about this one. Scott's excited about this one. With the Halloween right around the corner, we have one of our favorite customers, one of our favorite artists, the spirit artist, Rita Berkowitz.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Thank you
Rita.
for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to have you in. I'm excited. I think that the timing is right because of what you're what you do and what you have done. And I think we have a great relationship.
We do.
I mean, I knew you before I knew you were an artist. Before I knew you were a
you were 10. You were 10 years old when you used to come into my house.
Yeah. So that was I think we have a nice history, and one of the things I've talked to a lot of people here that we've had on the show or podcast about is sometimes I forget, and that I know all these people that are kind of really interesting, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this.
Fabulous.
And one of the reasons why I think we've been able to get some really good artists from the South Shore in is because I have these relationships, like the relationship I have with you, that's kind of a little bit deeper than just
Hey, how are
Just
you?
a customer.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just a customer.
That's something we like to grow with all of our customers. We have relationships, but I think we have a
very special one.
Yes. And I look forward to seeing you when you come in, when you bring in your sidekick or your driver, David as well. So I'm really excited to have you here, and I'm really excited to kind of talk about your path as an artist.
Okay.
Your path as a spirit, what do we
Spirit
call it?
artist.
Spirit artist
Yes,
and medium. So if you want to,
Okay.
why don't you tell them, why don't you give
How
us
it
a
all
little
began?
history?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
How it all began. I was very interested in healing. Not that interested in being a medium. Went to the spiritualist church, and when I went there was another medium that was there that kept walking around saying, "Rita, you're a spirit artist." And I used to say, "Go away from me, Barbara. That's not what I want to do." And she would say, "Rita, you're a spirit artist." And then finally one day, to stop her from badgering me, I agreed to come to her class and try it, because I had never done it before.
Had you had an art history?
I had a great art history. I was lucky enough to go to the High School of Art and Design and then Pratt Institute. Then the museum school.
Yeah.
And
so you were already.
I was already an artist.
You were an artist
Art
at this
established.
point.
Artist established at this point.
When you were getting into the
healing part. The healing part was always interested. When I was 7 years old, I used to have a dream that I would go to people's houses and put my hand on their back and they would get better. And so that was something that I really, really, really wanted to do.
Yep.
And so, as I said, Barb,
is that Reiki, or is that
it's similar to Reiki. Spiritualist healing is very similar to Reiki. You go up, you get connected to those who are the higher powers that are working with you, and then you channel the energy through your body, out your hands to the person. Spiritualist healing, you don't necessarily have to do the symbols. Reiki healing, you do the symbols, but if you know what that is, and so that's really the difference between the two of them. So I wanted to do that. Barbara kept saying, "You're going to be a spirit artist, you're a spirit artist," and so I agreed to go to her class to try it. And so everybody's sitting in a big circle, and I did one sketch, and it was a Native American man, and I didn't think all that much of it when I did it. And then the second one was a middle-aged man, and the third one was an adolescent boy. After I drew the adolescent boy, man took out his wallet, took out a photograph. He said, "That's my son. You just drew him, and I can't thank you enough."
Yeah.
Wow.
And I will tell you, I got scared, and I won't use the word because we're on public radio now, but I got so scared because I realized my life was never going to be the same. And then I turned around and looked at the person that I drew the middle-aged man for, and she's sitting there with tears coming down her face and said, "You just drew my father."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that's how that all started. And so they kept throwing me up on the platform and throwing me for mediums days and throwing me here to keep establishing my work. So I started to do it, and it became known. So then a man named Bob Olson contacted me from ofspirit.com, and he wrote an article about me. And I did a sketch for him, and his mother found this portrait of a great uncle who with a big mustache, who was in the military. So he had the military hat on and this great big mustache, because it was late 1800s when this photograph was from. And he said, I want to write an article about you. I said, great. He came down to interview me. And he wrote the article, and he did a video, and then he said, I'm starting this thing of spirit.com. Well, from that, the Idiot's Guide people found me. And so they contacted me and said, will you please write the book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Communicating with Spirits? And so
now they've changed the name on
they've left the Idiot's Guide off. I think the Idiot's Guides are gone. But the book is still out, so now it's just called Communicating with Spirits. But anyhow, you can get it on Amazon. But that book blew up my career from being somebody who did readings on the weekend to somebody who was doing readings daily. And got to travel a lot, got to be invited to different places. I got to do radio in Los Angeles. I got to be invited to different New Age centers. And at that point, we're talking about 2001. The New Age movement was still relatively new at that time. And here I was, the person who came and would demonstrate and do these sketches. Or I did the 5-hour radio program in L.A. and I was the psychic from Boston to radio show in Shreveport, Louisiana, where they came on and the Bible Thumpers came on, and so that was.
I think it was there a Fox Zip Trip to Norwell.
Yes, I did a Fox Zip Trip, and I forgot about that one. They did I did the Fox Zip Trip in Norwell, the best secret found in Norwell. And that was really fascinating because the person who was interviewing me really was a skeptic. And I drew a man who was her grandfather, but I drew him in a suit and tie. And she said, I never saw my grandfather in a suit and tie. And then she called her mom, and her mom sent her a photograph of the grandfather wearing the suit and tie that I drew him in.
So when you're doing those drawings, how does it happen? I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's is it something you're conscious of, or do you do you see what you're drawing in your head, or
I see what I'm drawing in my head, and the hands take over. It's sort of a combination. If you think of automatic writing, so it's like automatic drawing, and then. Sometimes, and I always say sometimes your guides, because those are who will work with you and to do the work, sometimes your guides will actually play with you a little bit. So there are times I've gotten up on the stage, there's my big pad, there I'm ready to sketch, and they say trust. And that's the word I always tell my students, trust. You have to trust. So in the trusting, I see nothing. They just take my hand and let it go. So, and that's cool. I mean, that's really cool. But how I see them, whether I'm doing them as a sketch or whether I'm doing just a regular reading, I see them as a hologram. So if I'm looking out into the audience, I will see like a hologram standing over your shoulder.
Gotcha.
And so I'll say, I'm seeing this person, or I see them just in my mind's eye. And so I see this person, and then inside of me, I feel their personality. I feel how they stood. I feel how they walked. I feel what took them. And so it's a fascinating process to go through. And I love doing the work. But right now I'll say semi-retired because I'm spending more of my time in my art studio than I am, doing this work. When I was a child, younger than when you came to my house the first time, my mother used to ask me, who are you drawing?
Yeah.
Why are you drawing all these faces? Who are these people? And I said, they come to me.
Yeah.
I said, I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
But they just come to me.
Yeah.
So I would see these different people in my head,
Yep.
and I would sketch them.
Yep.
And, you can imagine a 7 or 8 year old child.
Yeah.
I mean, I did have some ability, but,
Yeah.
a 7 or 8 year old child trying to draw a portrait. And I was drawing these faces of all these people. And that's how it actually, very, very beginnings
Yeah.
of it.
It's funny too, because then you're drawing. You're as a child, you're drawing these things you don't know, but then you go to Pratt, right?
Yeah.
So that you already have like this history of drawing figures,
Figures and faces and
which
art
is
and design
probably
also,
very,
which helps.
Yep.
And I had a friend who she's in spirit now, but I had a friend when I first started chatting with her when we first became friends, and she was a psychic medium also, and she said to me that if I had known when I was 20 years old that I was going to be spending my days drawing dead people, I probably would have run for the hills.
Yeah.
But in fact, it became something that I saw the healing happen. So I wanted to start the spiritual path in a healing modality.
Yep.
I, in my life, have had 2 miraculous healings done on me.
Yep.
And it was both incredible experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And one was I had breast cancer when I was younger.
Yep.
And I had bad chemotherapy. And my mentor, Bob Miller,
Yep.
who was a healer, and that's why I followed him,
Yeah.
would put his hands on me, raise them up, and it was like my body was sucked out like a vacuum.
Yeah.
And before he had done that, I said to somebody who lived around the corner from me and was there with his wife, "Can one of you drive my car home?
Yeah.
I can't drive." After he did the healing, Jack came up to me. He said, "Okay, can I have your keys? I'll take you home now." And I said, "I'm fine."
Yep.
And I worked a full day the next day in my studio.
Yep.
So from somebody who, couldn't even drive their car home from Quincy
Yeah.
to Norwell at that time, all of a sudden I could work a full day
Yeah.
painting. And painting, it's not relaxing work for those people who think it is.
Yeah.
It's you're really, you're pulling, your brain is working, and I do ask my guides to work with me when I paint, yes.
Yeah.
But this is happening, and so you're working really hard in getting this stuff out and getting this stuff going.
Yep. Now so I had a couple of questions regarding
Here we go.
like now that we're touching on these things too, so I remember vividly a couple of the pieces in your house when I was a kid. Now were those like guided too by
The farmer, as you refer to him,
Yeah.
he's actually a very interesting story with that painting. The image came to me.
Yeah.
I was working in Dorchester with troubled adolescent boys. You
Yeah.
probably remember
Yeah,
that.
oh, yeah.
And so I'm like, one of these kids was glued to my hip, pain in my rear.
Yeah.
Okay? And he's still in touch with me, and he's now 54.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So, anyhow, I said, "Who dropped this kid in my lap?" And I see that image
Yeah.
of that painting of the tobacco farmer. And then the kid's name is Anthony. His kid's 54. But the kid's name is Anthony. And he came into the studio and said, pointed and said, "I know that guy. Who is it?" And I said to him, well, when I told him the story of how the image came, and so he giggled when I said, "The kid's a pain in my rear."
Yeah.
But he looked at it and he said, "Oh, my father's whole family were tobacco farmers."
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it's
That's
not
how it
something from
happens.
around
You
here
know.
either. We don't have a lot of tobacco farms.
we
around
don't have a
here,
lot.
so
There's a
it's
few in
not-
Connecticut, but none in Massachusetts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly a local, it's not corn stalks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we were there, so now when you do because obviously your work's evolved a little bit from like the portraits.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I
know,
had
like a lot
spent-
of the stuff you do now is like waterfalls and like water based. Is there a connection between that and the spirits?
Waterfalls is a metaphor for life.
Okay.
Okay, water is a metaphor for life. We are made, 96%
Yep.
water or
Yep.
something
Yep.
like that? So, and I'm a water sign, so water.
All right.
Yep.
So the attraction to water was very important to me. When we moved to Situate, where I am living now, and I looked out at the marsh, I said, how can I not paint this? I had closed my studio when I got really crazy with the spiritual work because I was going 24/7 doing that. And then I saw the marsh, and I said, that's just incredible. I have to paint that. So then I go to the South Shore Arts Center and sign up for a class with Donna Rossetti Bailey, who was it was the only day that I had off during the week because I said, I need a day for me.
Donna's great.
And Donna's great.
Yep, she's
Donna's now
hilarious.
one of my very dearest friends.
Yep.
And she loves to hear the spiritual stories. Ooh, she gets very excited.
Yeah, she's coming on.
Yeah. Is she coming on? Fabulous, fabulous.
I think she's gonna show. Maybe it's I forget it because there's a lot of people that I've
December,
talked to
isn't it?
that are lined up and generally trying to around some sort of event to kind of promote that as well. So yeah, she's gonna come.
She's fabulous.
Great to talk to.
So the first day of class, she said, well, you're obviously not that new, because she didn't know who I was.
Yep.
You're obviously not that new. What were you doing before?
Yep.
So I very quietly, because I didn't want
Yeah,
it to
you
get
didn't want
around
to
the
become
class and become
Yeah.
everybody scared that I'm tuning into what they're doing.
That or be hounded by
And
them
so-
the whole time in the class.
So, I told her what I did, and then I went back to painting. And then in that class, it was a 5-hour class, so we'd break for lunch and do a critique.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah.
And so at the time we broke for lunch, Donna says, girls, guess who we have here?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And so they go, oh, God.
Yeah.
And so she told them, and some backed away, and
Yeah.
some came very close. So
Never saw some of those people again.
they actually say the thing that I found fascinating, it was my only day off a week, there were 12 women who are all spiritual people,
Yeah.
coming from different directions, but all spiritual people.
Well, these things have a way of
These
working out
caveats,
on-
you're
Yep.
guided. You're guided through life. So, that's how I started doing the painting again,
Yeah.
and that's why the water and the waterfalls. And matter of fact, this last week I'm taking a master's class now at
Okay.
the South Shore Arts Center
Nice.
from Lorinda O'Connor, who's a phenomenal
Yeah.
artist, and she, we did an assignment, and somebody said to me, "There's no water."
Yeah.
That I painted a painting with no water. That became something to.
That was the odd
That was
thing,
the odd
yeah.
thing. Now, what was different about
Yeah.
this? There was no water.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Were you happy with the way the painting came out?
Love the way the painting came out.
What was it?
It was a path with a tree,
Yep.
and then there was another one that you just framed them all last week.
Yep.
Then there was another one that was. It started off as something, and then we were supposed to bring in what's called a brushed off board. So when you're not satisfied with your pastel piece, you can take
Yep.
a brush and get all that loose pastel
Yep.
off. So then you get sort of this amorphic field of different colors
Yep.
that are on the paper, and so then that guided into what I was going to do.
Nice.
And it had to be, we had gone the week before to Hornstra Farms,
Yep.
and so it had to be inspired by something from there.
Yep.
So from what was a bright sunny day, and if I showed you the first painting that I
Yep.
did there, and I showed you the painting that we framed here last week,
Yep.
you would say, wow, but you could see that, it is that the forms and so on are there,
Yep.
but one is very abstract and one is very realistic and
Detailed.
and so on. And I used to do abstract painting way back before I did the big figures for
Yeah.
a while. And I always loved the thick and thin.
Yep.
Having a very thin film of color, and then you build on top
top
of
of
that.
it, yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing now.
Yep.
I told Donna about it about a week or so ago after I took that class. I was lying in bed and I was downloaded. So for me, my guides will come in and say, okay, this is what you're going to be doing. This is what has to happen. So then a painting that I had started in the studio, brought it over to the industrial sink, brushed it all off and did a whole different piece
Yeah.
with it that I'm very happy with.
Yeah, and the pastel seems like it's a good medium for working with for you, like just the like the smudginess, like
Yeah.
the
Blend
way
out.
like, it
Well,
covers,
you
like,
can, but we have people in the class that are doing oils, that are doing.
Oh, okay. So the class is
The class is not just pastel.
Yeah.
I would say probably a good half of us are pastel, but there's oils, acrylics, and somebody's doing watercolor and pastel. So it's for anybody
Sure.
who wants to be furthering their work at a level that's high. I mean, I looked at the people in the class and said, holy, these people are great. I belong here. So,
I mean, we're fortunate. The South Shore is
Yeah.
there's
flooded
filled
with wonderful artists. Yeah, a
And-
fabulous arts community.
Yeah, no, it is. It's great. We have great. South Shore is a fantastic organization. North River is a great,
Great
Plymouth.
organization.
I mean,
Plymouth,
there's-
yeah, they all
and
are. Yeah,
Then there's
Duxbury.
Duxbury.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot around here, and that's part of what my vision is for what we're doing here to try to be like this.
An art center
Yeah,
within,
exactly.
within the shop. Yeah,
Yeah,
which
I
would
mean,
be fabulous.
to kind of connect everything
Yeah.
because we keep talking about this and we keep there's all these groups and they kind of compete with each other
Yeah.
but we don't compete with them. We're kind of a piece for all of them because we do so much work for all the artists and all the organizations. We try to support them, so
You do wonderful support for them,
so
and I
like
know that.
trying to be like this hub for all of the art scene, so that so that they don't have to worry about competing with themselves. I was talking to Sally Dean about this too the other day. And
Yeah.
it's like it would almost make sense for all these organizations to have one representative go into so that they have like a meeting or something and
Yeah.
be like, all right, let's do this.
A guild.
The first,
Guild. Well, yeah, a guild, but
Yeah.
and all of the towns have, there's the Weymouth Art Center,
Yeah.
not Art Center, but Art Association.
Yeah.
Thank you, the Weymouth Art Association. I've demonstrated for the Braintree Art
Yeah.
Association. So they're again
Yep.
South Shore
Yeah, Hull's got
supports
another-
the
what's
arts.
what's the one with
Hull's another big one.
Yeah.
Hull, yes, I've shown in
Yeah.
Hull, and
Plymouth,
the whatchamacalls, the way down at the end of Hull, there's the museum, and they do a show every year,
Yes,
Sea
I
and
know.
Sky.
Yep.
And so
The life-saving
Life-Saving Museum,
Yeah,
yes.
Yep.
And so that working is
Yeah, it's
again,
almost too big,
another-
right? There's too many.
There's so much. Well, it's fascinating because amongst the artists, because you probably hear some of the conversation, but the public doesn't hear the conversation. Everything happens at once.
Yeah, no, it does.
And and it's like, okay, what piece? What's my favorite piece? Who am I going to give that one to? What's my second favorite piece? Who am I going to give that one
Yeah.
to? So you go through this.
Well, there's some, too, because there's some that are, the dates are staggered, so it's like someone gets a piece rejected from here, they pick it up,
Oh, they
drop it, and then
And then drop it off, and then there was an award in the
Yeah,
next one.
exactly,
Because
yeah.
it's all about, the
Subjective,
different,
yeah,
it's
it's-
very subjective.
Yeah.
We hope it's not, but it is.
Yeah.
So that you bring your rejected here, okay, it's got to go here, okay, they love it, okay, it's got a ribbon
Yeah.
next to it, okay, you're happy.
Well, that's a good.
And it's sold.
It's also
Even better.
it's also a good thing for people to hear too. So it is subjective, and I've been rejected from numerous shows, and I'm one. It's
You
a
get
hit.
a,
Yeah,
you get a, in
Yeah,
your stomach,
kinda,
yeah.
that little
but
pit,
knowing
yeah.
that I was talking to somebody and they'd won an award. They had a piece that won an award in one show, and then they brought it to a different show and it
Got rejected. No, I've had that happen
And
too.
it's-
It's a fascinating thing. And
You-
you go,
you're
hey, I
probably
thought
thinking
this
you're
was
gonna-
good. What
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
You think you got a sure thing,
Yeah.
you're going to be in the show. So I mean, I think that people hearing that, I think is good
Yeah.
because you don't want to beat yourself up
Yeah.
because one person who's judging a show, it's
not their taste.
Yeah.
It is so subjective. You have a sensibility of what you think is good art.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't cross that.
Yeah.
And so if you see, and I've juried shows, and I was once at a party one time where the hostess of the party said, okay, here is this gentleman, and you're an artist too,
Yep.
and I'll have you talk. And I said, well, where's your work, so on and so forth. And he said, the Copley Society. And I said, oh, I just juried a show there. And he said, yes, I got rejected.
That's what I thought.
And I won.
Yeah, art's
And
like
I said-
food. Everybody's got their own
Right.
tastes. It makes
some
sense.
nights you want Italian, some nights you want Chinese, but it's all good.
exactly.
Yeah.
Some days you may like a watercolor. Other days you want, a
Right,
fine,
and-
a
and
fine
s-
oil painting. Or an abstract. It
Yeah,
all
and there's
just
people that
depends.
probably have bias too, right? Like,
Right, well,
I'm not going to accept any pieces with a cat in it.
Oh my god.
And I've juried shows before too, and just because of what we do here, if something's got a terrible frame on it, or
Yeah.
it's not framed right, like that.
And that was
throws
the
me
reason.
off.
That was the reason why that gentleman was rejected, because it was probably a 6x8 painting in a gold frame that
Yeah,
was
when the
so
frame
big
is
that
more
all I
than the
could see was
painting.
the frame.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I said, I wouldn't show a piece like that. I want to see the painting,
Yep.
not the.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Although we are at the Frame Center,
Well,
and although those big gold frames are expensive,
This, the setting matters.
Yeah,
you
the
know.
It
right
does,
piece,
it
it can
does,
make
yeah.
it really pop. But the
Right.
wrong thing, it's like you said, you look at the frame before you look at the artwork.
the
That's not a
frame
good
was
sign.
so prevalent in my face that
Yeah.
I could not see
Yeah.
what the painting
Sometimes
actually
on a
looked like.
piece like that, it's like then I'm not seeing the piece. Like certain works that are at a certain level can carry a frame like that,
Right.
And then sometimes like you don't want it to look forced. Like if your painting can't carry a small painting with a 3-4 inch wide
Wide
gold
frame,
frame
yeah.
on
Right,
it,
yeah,
like,
that's
it's-
that's
Baroque
why
museum
we
style.
have you help us and Dina help us to select the right frames
Yeah.
for the pieces.
Yeah. Well, you have a distinct style.
Well, I have a
We-
distinct style, and I know the frames I want, and as long as
Yep.
they don't go out of stock, we're good.
Yeah.
But I'm sure your framing has changed though over the years too, from what you used to have to what you have now. Like I've gone back and looked. You had
I would say similar,
Yeah.
but there was a frame that you used to carry that used to have sort of like a copper color
Yep.
inlet, and that was my frame.
Yeah.
And then at the very beginning, when I was first painting the marshes, you had this sort of driftwoody
Yeah.
kind of frame, and that was my frame. And then I came in one day and said, it's out.
Yeah.
They're not making it anymore. I can't
Yeah.
blame you,
Yeah.
but they're not making it anymore. Then the one with the copper, which a lot of us use, because that copper will pick up any orange
Yeah.
or gold.
Yeah, Donna
that
does
was-
it too. Donna has that one set of copper bronze
Right,
kind
yeah.
of colors that she always
Always
goes to. It's like her
uses, yeah.
starter, and then
And
then if it doesn't work,
and when
then
we're
she'll
at-
try some.
And on Mondays we paint. There's a group of us that painted Donna's house.
Oh, okay.
And so when she finishes a painting, she gets out her frame. She puts it next. What do you think, girls? What do you think? And and so it's we are such a community together to work with. But yeah, the bronze frame is one. It's a bronze wood frame, not a bronze
Yeah, the
metal
industrial
frame. Yeah.
metal. It's got like that pitted kind of the one that you use, the square
Yeah.
cubed one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I use a very square, very contemporary
yeah.
frame.
It's got just a slight
Yeah.
kind of color shift on it if
Yeah.
the light hits it a certain
Has an
way.
industrial feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Pitted metal,
from across the room, it just looks.
It looks like a nice frame.
Yeah, and back to the South Shore community. Now you do a lot of stuff at South Shore Art Center.
I'm a gallery artist
Gallery
at South.
artist,
Yeah.
South Shore.
Yeah.
You're involved with North River too. Or-
I
or-
do. I'm a member of North River. I
Yeah.
enter their shows and
Yeah.
and pray.
Yeah.
I'm a member of Plymouth and Duxbury, so
Yep.
that's where you get. You're like, come September, you're like inundated with more emails from
Yep.
this show is happening, this
Oh,
show is
yeah,
happening,
yeah.
and then there are the national shows
Yeah.
from the different pastel societies.
Mm-hmm.
Each state has a pastel, or almost every state has a pastel society.
New Mexico, the big one,
New Mexico is IAPS.
is okay.
IAPS is once every 2 years, the pastelists get together,
Yep.
if they so desire, in New Mexico.
Yep. Do you make that trip?
I've made it a good few
Because
times.
there's some others some healing and stuff like that going on in New Mexico too, right?
Truly, yes. So, but usually I go with a bunch of girls, so we
you're
go together. So
focused on
sort of
pastels?
focused on pastels at that time.
I want to go to New Mexico for other.
Oh, it's the healing that goes on in the Southwest
Yep.
is pretty profound.
What's
So-
that? What is that like? There's like some part of like the, or what is it like? I don't know, like if there's something in the
Well, there are vortexes.
vortex. That's the word I'm looking
So,
for. Yes.
yeah, so if you are in the presence of a vortex,
Yeah.
the experience, and I can only say it that way,
Yeah.
the experience of this energy rushing
Yeah.
through your body,
Yep.
feeling it almost feels like all of a sudden you don't feel like you're in the physical anymore.
Yep.
Many times a good friend of mine brought me there.
Yep.
And said she had moved to Sedona for a while,
Yep.
and so she brought me there, and she said, "I want to bring you to a vortex," because it was right after I had had the cancer.
Sure.
So she brought me there, and she said, "I'm going to stand behind you and just channel energy, and
Yep.
you just suck it in." And it was like,
So what forms of vortex? Yeah.
what forms of vortex?
Yeah, we're gonna cut away from the art for a minute here because I'm intrigued, and I know you're the one to ask.
There are. The Earth has a lot of energy.
Yep.
The Earth has a lot of healing.
Yep.
Most of us are not grounded.
Yeah.
Okay.
My acupuncturist has me walking on, make sure my feet are on
On the ground,
earthing, he
if
calls
you
it.
want to go very technically, in the mid 1950s, we stopped wearing leather-soled shoes and started wearing rubber-soled shoes.
Yep.
And so those rubber-soled shoes stops you from getting the energy of the earth.
Yeah.
And this woman that I was talking about who invited me to Sedona used to say to me, "Rita, get out on the grass, put your feet on the grass."
Yep.
This was a long time ago.
Yep.
This was way before all the New Age stuff was around.
That's fine. So my acupuncturist,
She's absolutely correct.
He pushes me on this all the time.
Yeah.
And I've got it. It's part of my morning routine.
Yeah.
Work out.
Yep.
Have a cup of coffee, and then I just have a second cup of coffee, and I walk around outside.
Yep.
With my feet on the ground,
And
no
if-
matter
if-
the weather.
Well, even if it's snowing.
Yep.
Because then it's a little harder to walk around outside. Walk around on wood or on stone in
Yep.
your house if you have a wood or a stone floor.
Okay.
Because that's an earth element.
Okay.
Okay. So, but yeah, so the energy there just comes up from the earth, and you know, if I would give it a visual, it's like a spiral. And so, if I were to do healing on you, and I started to move my hand like this without touching you, you can feel
Yep.
the energy of me doing that, and that's what you feel. The earth is doing that for you when you're there.
Well, yeah. So that's on. Like I might push that up my list of places I want to get to.
You should go to Sedona. You
Sedona?
should,
Yeah.
go to Sedona. You go for these walks. I mean, when you could get maps in Sedona that show you where the different vortexes are.
So Jen, Sedona, I think might be the spot. Jen's been teaching yoga. She's been doing all that stuff, and I think there's a
I've been a
retreat that
yogini
she-
for 45
Yeah,
years.
I think there's there's
retreat?
a retreat, and I think Sedona is the spot. That she
would
is
not
trying to
surprise
get
it because
me to get to.
it's and you have also the Native American culture that's
Yeah.
there that because natural healing
Yep.
is a very big part of the Native American
their
culture,
culture.
which
Yeah.
we can now flip over to what's happening Saturday night at Women of Wisdom.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Because
Segue.
because the man I'm going to be working with
Yep.
is a medicine man.
Okay.
Nice.
He is. We always call us the shaman and the medium.
Yep.
Or the medium and the shaman, whoever he designs our little ads.
Yep.
And so Saturday night we're doing a seance there.
Nice.
So it's for the celebration of Halloween. Everybody thinks the veil between the worlds at Halloween is the thinnest. Not my experience. I've
Yeah.
never noticed it any thicker at any times or
Yeah.
any thinner at any
Well,
time.
if it gets people
If it
to
gets
open their
people
minds
to open their
it, right?
minds up,
That's the
that's
thing,
what
it's,
matters.
it's-
So
a
we're
group
going to be
belief.
doing that Saturday night at Women of Wisdom in Easton
Easton.
from 5:30 to 7:30. There's
How
still
do people-
there's just a couple of seats left.
And how do people find?
They can go on Women of Wisdom's website,
Okay.
get their phone number, call up now, because if you want to get in, I mean, from what Tom told me last night, there's 3 slots left.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in coming in, this is a great evening. Tom and I have a lot of fun
Yeah.
working together. And
When you say a séance, like what does that
does a
consist of? Like you just chanting
So,
and
no, we're not going to chant. Tom and I usually do some praying and chanting a little bit before we come out.
Yeah.
So I said to him, okay, you've got to be there at 5 o'clock so we could do our thing,
Yep.
which is for me, very important. And
Yeah, get warmed up, right?
It's a warm up, yeah.
It's like
make yourself open to
make
everything.
yourself open. That's what you're doing. You're opening up to the guides. You are asking them for the help. You say certain prayers, and he does it in the native language.
Yep.
And so I just right along with him,
Yeah.
And then I do it in English and then explain to him what the different things are
Yep.
that I'm doing. And so now we know what each other is doing, so we just sort of go through it.
Yep.
And it's so much fun. He calls me his sister.
Yep.
And he's a big, big, big man.
Yeah.
He makes you look little. He's a big man.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I mean, his story, if you ever get a chance to hear his story,
Yep.
it's magnificent because when he was like 19 years old, and I hope I'm saying it exactly correctly, he went to visit his grandfather at the reservation in North Dakota.
Yep.
And then when he was there, and he was a dark-skinned man at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the segue. He was dark-skinned.
Yep.
Okay, when he was there, he said to his grandfather, "I need to go to Arizona. I need to go on a vision quest."
Mhm.
And so he went on the vision quest, and he started to fade. Within 2 weeks' period of time, all of the pigment left his skin and hair. So, and I saw the before and after pictures.
Yeah.
When I met him, he was already. So I met him at my very first public demonstration, and
Yeah.
we didn't know who each other was. And at that point, I didn't. I was like really new to it, so I used to have whoever I was drawing for to come down
Sure.
to the stage,
Bring
so I could just
closer.
hold their hand,
Yeah.
and get in that way.
Yep.
And so here is this whitest man I've ever seen, and I'm drawing a Native American person, and I'm saying, "Oh, I am messing up big time.
Something's
I am
Yeah.
something's not kosher here."
Then you just gotta
And
trust it.
I had to trust it. So the last thing I said to him was, "And this man is saying to you, go as the crow flies." And he reached into his shirt, pulled out a pendant of a crow
Yep.
that his grandfather gave him the last time he saw his grandfather alive. And his grandfather said to him, "You go as the crow flies."
It's wild.
So
Yeah.
that's how it happens.
Yeah.
So it's very cool.
Now, how often do you and you said Tom?
Tom and I will work together usually once a year, occasionally something else, but Halloween, Women of Wisdom, we've been doing
That's-
together
okay.
for.
And how does anyone find out about other things that you're doing? Is it
I always post it.
RitaBerkowitz.com or?
It's Rita Berkowitz Art now. We
Okay.
changed it. It used to be thespiриtartist.com, and somebody bought that out from under me.
Oh.
So now it's RitaBerkowitzArt.com, and they can go on there and they
They see your artwork.
they see my artwork,
and any
and
events
most
you
of the
have.
time the events that I have I post
Yep.
on social media
Social
because
media.
that's really the way. Unless somebody's really looking for you,
Yep.
Yeah.
they're not going to necessarily. So social media is the way to get any of the events out there.
Yeah.
So I usually post it on Facebook, Instagram, that
Instagram,
kind of thing.
Facebook.
That's
Yeah.
what we try to do is get enough of
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
to have a central calendar with every different event locally trying to list it. So, like fourth floor artists.
Fourth floor
Yeah,
artists are having
another
open
one.
studios,
Yeah,
which
another
is
one right
which
around
is
the corner.
right around the corner also.
Yeah, 3
so
weeks
my
out, right?
studio is in the Wright Building in Rockland.
Yep. You've been there for a while.
I've
too.
been there for 11 years now. Hard to
Yeah,
imagine.
because people get confused as to the two buildings. The
Yeah, there's
sandpaper factory
there's the
and
sandpaper factory and the Wright Building. We're basically around the corner from each other.
Yep.
So people who want to make it a full day or a weekend will actually go to both. There are, I think we have 50 or 60 studios in my building.
Yep.
And then in the other building, I'm not sure because I know they renovated, so I'm not sure. But I know some of the artists that are in the other building, and they're phenomenal.
Yep.
So I would recommend to anybody, come and see both if you want to come and say hey to me.
Yep.
I'm in Studio 203 in the Wright Building, and I'd love to say hello. You say you saw me on the podcast
podcast.
for the Frame Center, and maybe we'll print up some little cards, and you can get a little
Nice.
free piece of little print of a painting.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea.
We'll get some of those set.
Okay.
So, there's a, like being in that building. Is there like does that help you get work done too? I mean,
It's an old building.
inspiration.
It's an
with
old
other
building.
artists?
Yes, it's firstly the community is there. I share my studio with a fabulous artist, Marie Peters.
Marie Peters, yep. I know
And
Marie very well.
Marie is she's a genius. I always say she's my favorite mad woman because her mind never stops.
Yep.
I always was, when I moved in with her, I was petrified because I'm a very active person.
You're scared
if
of
you
her.
notice.
She's going to be scared of you. I think it would be the other way
She
around.
just sat there and painted,
Yep.
or did her collages, and she's so calm,
Yep.
and she's so steady, and I'm like back and forth, ooh, back and forth, back and
Yeah.
forth, and she stays still, and I said, I'm probably going to drive this lady nuts,
Yeah.
and she said, I don't even notice it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
because she's so in her zone
Focused, yeah.
that's what she does, and she switches from doing collage to doing oils to doing acrylics to doing
that's not
printmaking.
easy, yeah.
So where she has to let something dry over here, she's got something in a whole other medium over here that she's going to work in.
Yeah.
I say I'm true to my painting. I have to finish it before I go on
Yeah,
to
you
too
can't
much
move
else.
on to something else
Yeah.
before that one's
'Cause
finished. Yeah.
I'm focused on that.
Yeah, I know that
you,
feeling too.
you do the group with Donna too. Like now, Donna's over in that. Is she in those buildings too, or is she?
No, Donna has a great studio in her house, which
house.
is where we come to paint. And Donna, again, I was ill. I couldn't come to class
Yep.
because I was having treatments done on Wednesday when her class was. And she said, so we'll have some of the girls come down and paint with you on Monday so you don't have to paint alone.
Oh, there you go.
And this started 6.5 years ago.
Nice.
And on most Mondays, we're at Donna's house painting.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, and then you have two. Is it like two different communities, or is there some
There's a
crossover?
definitely
lot of
crossover.
crossover.
Yeah,
Kind of
definitely
like the art
crossover.
associations.
Yeah, definitely a crossover. We, as a matter of fact, the Lorinda O'Connor, who's teaching the master's class, was a student in my first class when I was working
okay.
with Donna Rossetti Bailey.
Yeah.
And then now Donna is at the next table to me in the master's class,
Yeah.
and Lorinda is teaching that class.
That's right.
So it's fascinating. And sometimes Lorinda paints with us, and there's a few other people that paint with us. Maureen Spinelli, who I
Yep.
know you know, she sometimes is there, and Sue Kerrigan. I don't know if you know.
Oh yeah, sure.
You know Sue Kerrigan. Okay. So Sue Kerrigan.
Most of them, we know most of them, and if we don't, I feel
If
like
we
I'm
don't,
a
I
little
have
bit-
to drag them here to make sure that they buy their frames here.
Yeah, but even if they don't, most of the names. I mean, I try to get to most of the shows. So I see, I see people. I can appreciate people's work, whether or not they're.
Supporting your business.
Regardless. I
Yeah.
mean, the
You have a great idea.
the thriving art community is a big part of our business. And
Yeah.
hopefully we help that.
Well, it says that on the back of the T-shirts.
Yep,
Because I look at that
I know,
all the
it
time.
is.
It's
Supporting local
wonderful,
artists.
yeah.
Says it on the podcast cover now too.
Yeah.
Okay, so there it is.
Yeah, I mean that's what a big part of this is about, and I think that why not bigger than us, bigger than any of the art associations? Why not have the South Shore be a kind of a mecca or
It is a mecca
important
for
part
artists, yeah.
artists, I
Yeah.
mean, the Cape has got a great feel
Yep.
to it. We're right there. Boston's got
Right,
a great
yeah.
art scene. We're right.
I mean, a lot of the Cape people and the people in South Shore
Yeah.
are very much, do things together. Like, for instance, New Hampshire just had a national show,
Yeah.
New Hampshire Pastel Society. And so one of the people from the Cape brought all the paintings from the Cape to my house, and then I brought all of the paintings up to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So we don't have to have a million
Yeah.
people driving
Oh, my
back
God,
and forth.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and a lot of us participate in Connecticut. I don't know that Rhode Island has one. I haven't heard
Yeah.
about Rhode Island having one. Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine has one.
Yep.
So, a lot of us take
And Maine's
part.
got a good nice art scene.
Huge art scene.
Yeah.
So a lot of us take part in those shows.
Yep.
And so we all, David said, it's amazing to see how you women,
Yeah.
even though we do let men work with us,
Yeah.
how you women organize everything and get it together. And so nobody has to do too much and everybody's taking turns and
Yeah.
everybody, and I said, well, women nurture, men compete. That's the difference.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, some healthy competition is good, right?
A healthy
But-
competition is good, yes.
But working as a team, I think, is also very important.
It is. And we
that
do.
helps raise
And we do.
everybody up.
It
right?
does. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's
And that's the
awesome.
main thing behind this is to get everybody to be more familiar with the different artists that we have in the area. The more familiar they are, the more of a connection they have to someone, the better off they are when they go looking for their own pieces of artwork. You know? So it's a good stepping stone for that, for people to get to know someone.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, and I think that, in my head too, like I feel like having people come on and talk about their art, their history. I think that when somebody is interested in buying artwork, like the more they know about the person, and I don't know, you sell plenty of paintings, so you can probably.
I'm very blessed that way.
You can probably talk to. I mean, I don't know. When you see a painting go out, do you like to know who's buying it? Do you care, or is it? Because I feel like
care?
From a consumer, like when I buy artwork, I kind of like to know a little bit about the history of the person. Or
I like to know it. It's not always possible.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I mean, open studios is a great time for selling artwork.
Yep.
Sure.
And so people will come in and they chat with you for a while. So it's different than going into a show. And when we show, the opening is usually the time when more paintings are sold than other times, because people love to chat with the artist who and we love to chat with them. And so I'm always surprised at who the people are and what they feel, and sometimes again, sometimes you know them, sometimes they're from different communities that you might know, and other times they're total strangers that come in and to a show and want to buy a piece, or they may go onto the websites, or they however it is.
But knowing the significance of like some stuff, like I didn't really realize the significance of the waterfalls, and like that being
well, think of how a waterfall falls, and think about how life is.
Yeah, but having a conversation with the artist, like now you get now I get it now, and like the significance of water in some of your pieces, like I think you have that conversation with somebody and it kind of changes how they look at the artwork.
Absolutely.
It kind of
absolutely,
and if you find it, I don't know, it's like anything, right? Like you have a connection with somebody and you read it, like getting a piece of their artwork is kind of, when you have it in your home, it's more than...
It's what I have in my house. I have the friend wall.
Yeah.
So
who's on the wall?
Who's on the wall?
Yeah,
who's on the wall?
Who's on the wall?
You want to know?
Yeah,
We do. It's part of our segments here.
Well, Donna is.
Yep.
Lorinda is. I have two Spinellis.
Yep.
I have my friend Jim, who has a studio out in P-Town.
Yep.
And every time I go out to P-Town, he sometimes slips me a little present.
Yep.
If I say, oh, I really love that. Ed Chesnovich.
Oh, yeah. We know
And I'm trying to think of who else is on it.
Chesnovich is how you say it? I've always said Chesnovich. I don't. I can, some of these names I get.
They're big names.
I'm sure he gets a lot. I'm sure he gets people.
Several variations.
I'm sure.
How it's pronounced.
But Ed, and Ed's I adore Ed.
Yep.
Ed's just a dear friend of mine.
He's very talented too.
He's phenomenally talented.
Yep.
I mean, having one of his paintings in my house, David and I look at it all the time.
Is it a big one too?
It's a big one.
Yeah,
it's a big one. It's I would say it's probably 3 by 4 feet.
Yeah,
and
and
the frame
he works
is
very
probably
large. He works very large for a pastel. Because a pastel is not always.
He's actually switching over to oils.
Okay.
He for the last few years has been doing both.
Yep.
And he found that, oils are easier to transport because you're not dealing with the glass. And we all know about glass.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
glass isn't always cheap either.
Glass is more expensive than if you use good glass, which Ed always would.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he's been doing, and he had a magnificent show. It was during the pandemic, and I felt, because we all had to go in masked, and we had to have an appointment time to go in to see the show for the opening, which was like, I just felt for him because he worked so hard to put this incredible show together at the Cape Cod Museum. And it was more than a show, it was an exhibit, which there's a different level. It's not just for sales. This is for, to really tell the story. And, had the big wall with all the writing on it that you see if you go to a museum.
Sure.
And so, going in there and then, couldn't hug him. It was like, for Ed and I not to hug when we see each other, I'm a hugger.
Yeah.
So
elbows.
So, elbows.
Elbows,
and masks on, and
which is really hard to get. You want to see people's expressions.
Right. I mean, when you're talking to somebody, you really I love to see their faces and how their faces, emote. And so, I felt bad that it had to be happening then.
Yep.
But you can't help when the pandemic happened.
Some of these shows are like planned
2-3 years in advance. Yeah, and he had been working for it, but ended up fabulous. He just had a big spread in Cape Cod Magazine, like 6-8 page spread. Really wonderful. I'll bring it in for you if you want to see
definitely.
it.
Would love to see that.
And so, there's just these wonderful artists that are here.
Yep.
And I find that we work together well.
Yep.
Which is the nice thing, because it doesn't always happen at all.
Yep.
Sometimes it could be cutthroat competitive.
Yep.
Amongst certain, but the people here just sort of like love each other.
Yep.
And it's very much like being in the '60s in Love Fest, where we're all partying and so on and so forth, and just enjoying each other's company and being creative.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Oh, that's awesome. So. One of the things that we always like to wrap up with is asking people about what some of their favorite pieces are at their house. I know you got, I'm assuming Ed's might be one.
Ed's is one of my absolute favorites, and the big farm painting. I still absolutely love that painting. And you were there at the Millennium New Year's Eve party at my house, and there's still a couple of spots of that I can't reach to clean off.
Yep. So those two are favorites?
Those two are very much my favorite. Donna's also, Maureen's, of course.
Now, do you guys work out trades, or do you you buy and support from their shows?
Both.
Both.
Some people are, I've got so many paintings in my back. Like one day I walked into Donna's house and she said, Rita, pick a painting.
Yep.
And, she has a painting of mine in her house.
Yep.
So, but she insisted on buying it, and I said, I'm going to pay for this painting if you're not, if you're insisting on paying for that. But it was sold through North River, so she also wanted to report North River. And,
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, too, right? Like, you get even that small cut for the art associations, they need all the help.
It's not that small.
Well, even though they've got to take it.
You got to figure that into the price. That's all that is.
You do. And you also have to figure into the price about, we're selling in an area, where people have a set income.
Yeah.
Especially right now. And so you want to make the pieces affordable enough so they can be bought.
Yep.
So for those people who are, North River I know has one, Cohasset has one, just before Christmas time, they have like Art in the Barn.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And so, or at Open Studios, I usually have a sales section for paintings that have been around for a while that I'm probably not going to show anymore, but that are on sale.
Yeah,
So,
we talked with Jody about that too. Like, we're touching on the fact that people should, that's a good way to like jump into like buying original
real art, original art. Yeah, so
it's not a huge financial commitment.
Right,
you can
exactly.
take a chance.
You can take a chance, and what are years ago there was a young man when I had my studio in Boston way back when I was doing those huge paintings, and he walked into the studio and he said, "I love that," and he asked me the price, and I told him, and he said, "That would be the same price as a framed print would be if I went into a gallery." I said, "Pretty much."
Yep.
And he said, "I'm buying real art." And and sometimes we put up signs, "Buy from the artist while they're still alive, please." While we're still alive.
It's an investment.
It is. We're going to die someday. So, and then I'll draw their picture.
Yeah.
But,
there you go.
But you want to support the arts.
Yeah.
A lot of times right now the schools have sort of cut back on the art programs in the schools and so on.
Music, art. The first ones to go for some reason.
Yeah, and it's a shame too because some of the the sports don't seem to have any lack of funding.
No.
Because, a lot of that has to do with that's what people
want to go see.
Are donating to.
But art teaches you critical thinking, and if it's teaching you critical thinking, that's what we need to learn. Yeah. That's what we all need to open our minds a little bit and think a little more critically about what's going on.
Yep.
And so, doing art, teaching children art, really allows them to start to see the world slightly differently.
Yeah, and it gives them an opportunity to express themselves and figure out how to do that. And that's one of the reasons why we try. We have boxes set up for the art teachers, like to have stuff. I mean, the funding for
Map
art
boards
seems to
and
get
things.
cut.
Well, the North River does this great kids show, the elementary schools.
Yep, we've done one here with Hanover schools for ages.
Right, I remember that. And South
hopefully,
Shore
I
Art
think it's
Center
coming
does
back.
a high school thing.
Yep.
And so there are these great shows, and when you look at the art that the kids do,
Yep.
And seeing them go from the different grades too, like we've had them because we've been having them for so long. I've seen the ones like in the 5th and 6th grade now that are seniors.
yeah,
Like their progression of work.
and the progression of their work, and then
and
some
to see it in a professional capacity, framed on a wall.
framed on a wall, being there is like
it's much
really
different than
wonderful.
the thumbtack in the school
In the hallway,
in the
yeah,
glass
and
cabinet. It's a whole different feel than parents' night coming to having their stuff set up somewhere different other than the school.
And it gives them the incentive, because once you see your stuff framed hanging on a wall,
Yep.
then you say, okay, now this is real. This is not, this is not just I'm doing this as a little kid. And the one thing that, going back to the mediumship for a second, I always use the thing of teaching art
Yep.
because an artist use a medium.
Yep.
They use, what kind of media do they use,
Yep.
right? And the first painting teacher I worked with, under the blurb for him, he said, let the painting tell you what it wants,
Yep.
instead of you trying to copy the photograph
Yep.
and saying, wow, it looks exactly like the photograph. To let the painting tell you what it wants to be. And it was a wonderful thing. So I tell my mediumship students that studying mediumship is very much like doing art. You let it come through and you let it come out.
Yeah.
And so I let it come through me for the mediumship, and it comes out my mouth, or if I'm drawing. And when I'm painting, I let it come through me. And, as I said, last week I was downloaded on all these different new techniques.
Yeah.
And I called Donna immediately, and I said, Donna, does this ever happen to you where you got down? She says, nobody ever downloaded me. So,
Still running on the old software.
but, all of a sudden they were showing me a whole different way to work.
Yep.
And so I came to my studio the next day, brushed off that painting, and said, it can't be done this way. It has to be done this way.
Nice.
So it's like, and that's where, again, you trust what you're getting.
Yep.
Trust, yep.
And that's, put it in the painting, put it in the mediumship.
Yeah.
Yes, both.
Oh, I play around with so many different things. It helped working at a craft store for so many years. I get to play with so many different things all the time.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Whenever a new product would come in, they'd have me go home and play with it and test it around. So when people came in to ask about it, I'd actually know what it did, that kind of stuff. So I got used to playing around with all kinds of different
Well, that's great,
mediums
because
and
so many
stuff.
times you go into a craft store and nobody is there to
Yeah.
even help you, no less to.
Very true,
yeah.
exactly. And
You just buy it online.
You just buy it online, yeah.
And that's become a big thing. Is I am also part of a paint group online where we all share pictures and just things that we've done just to kind of get out, and then everybody gets inspired from different colors and shapes and patterns. And this person does it with a spinner, this person does it with a hair dryer and things. So I've played around with a lot of different techniques for that lately too, and that's changed a lot of how I have started painting.
As it would,
too.
so. And as it should.
Yes.
So I would say those techniques or whatever were brought to you or put in front of your face or made you, play with it for a while so you could then put it into your work.
Oh yeah, my palette's always is how I feel, how the mood is, what music I listen to, whatever happened in the week. That always affects whatever my color palette is for there.
It definitely would.
Because for my abstracts, it's not as I used to do watercolors. When I was 10, I lost my dad, so Saturdays I used to go, and actually Ron and Sharon Brake were just in here the other day buying supplies from us to frame some of their paintings. So, but Seaside Gallery in Abington, I used to go there, and it was great because they had from kids like 9, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to like teenagers, and I'm driving here myself in high school, and they would all work together, and the older kids would help the younger kids, and it was a great setup. It wasn't like, oh, I'm better than you, I'm better than they would all play around with different things. We'd have different music playing, we'd have different setups, everybody would work on everything else, and it was one of the better times I remember growing up, and I still have a lot of that work that I had growing up, in different portfolios and some frame stuff up on the wall that I reframe every once in a while just to keep it up to date and make it look that way. But it does make a difference having
But isn't
that
it
stuff
fun
available.
looking back at your old work?
Oh, God, yeah. I drive by,
just...
and I drive. It was funny because it was only 2 houses over from my grandparents.
Yeah.
So when our classes were done, I would just go to my grandparents' house afterwards until my mom could pick me up because that was my Saturday afternoons. And now it's like my uncle owns the house, so I go by there all the time, and I still see it, and you can't miss it. It's this big, bright yellow house with sharks and all kinds of other sea life and stuff painted across the whole front of it, so you can't miss it.
I think I've seen it.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique looking house. It is. It's definitely something you'd remember if you drove by it. But it's so funny. Like just driving by it triggers those old memories and things. So art can do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Having that piece of art you bought from a person you met at an open studio or at a gallery showing or something along those lines, which is why the gallery up here has been great too, because it's been getting more people to come in and see, even our just everyday customers that come up to look at all our stuff that we have ready to go. They have to walk through the gallery first to see it, and it's nice to just each month and a half just introducing them to new pieces and new techniques and new different things
and different ways to look at the world.
Yep, exactly.
Because that to me is again one of the most important things in doing art is that it's so many different perspectives.
Well, it's important, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to be closed-minded. You want to be
I
open-minded.
definitely don't.
I mean,
my mind
you'd be
hasn't
in
closed
trouble.
in a lot of years.
I mean, innovation. Everything comes from being open-minded and like seeing new stuff and
Seeing new stuff, being inspired. I mean, artists get inspired by looking at other artists' work.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why the pandemic was so terrible for so long.
I
they
know.
were all closed off to the where
I know, and
it's like
and everything.
I'm still staring at the same wall every
Everything
day.
stopped. I mean, there was when I first started painting with the group of women in South Shore, and it would come say that we had a lot of blizzards back in 2012, 2013, and we would text each other what we were working on.
Yeah.
So we could say, okay, do you have any critiques now? Because we would critique each other when we worked together. So, do you have anything you want to say about this? What do you think about this? So on and so forth. I'm stuck. This is just not working for me. What do I need to do? And we would do that back and forth, and it became a thing. I think that's what inspired us getting together, at Donna's house.
Yep.
Because we were doing that kind of thing where we were just allowing each other to see what we were doing while we were painting.
Imagery, online seminar, anything along those lines are great, but being in person in a group.
Being in person is
the
the
energy
best,
you feel off of everybody else definitely changes how your stuff
changes
works.
It,
so,
totally.
No, I definitely agree.
When
Working a group activity.
When you're seeing pieces in person opposed to through a screen, do you feel it? Does it feel different to you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because you feel the energy of the
Yeah.
piece. You could. It's like a print versus the painting.
Yep.
When you can feel the energy of the piece, when you can feel the emotion of the piece.
We're going to go to a museum together.
I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that would be a great thing to do.
A trip to the MFA, Rita,
might be in order
buy
here.
you lunch. I think that would be a fun experience to look at some real master works.
It's incredible. I mean, you go through and you look at some of, say, a Turner painting.
Yeah, Slave Ship was one I used to look at all the time. I used to sit because I lived around the corner from the MFA when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I used to go over there. That's when I first got into painting a little bit. I had gotten into painting a little bit before, and then I moved in. I was taking classes at the museum school.
Yep.
But that one, I used to, that one just is.
You visit the painting. It's and I used to have one at the MFA when I was studying, and when I was a kid in New York and I was going to Pratt.
Yeah.
We used to have some classes at the MFA, and there were certain paintings that I used to go to visit.
Yeah.
Turner was one of them. It's a storm painting. I think it's called Thunderstorm.
Yeah.
But it's a storm painting, and then Greco's. Last Supper.
Okay.
It's hard for a Jewish girl to
Yeah.
say. But the Last Supper and the expressions on the faces that he was able to get, and you feel these people, you know who they are when you look at those faces, and it's one of my favorite paintings. And when we went back to New York the last time, they had placed them.
Oh, yeah,
and rearranged the galleries, and I had to find something. Okay, I need to see these two paintings. You need to tell me where they are because I came here to see these two paintings.
Yeah.
They're my friends.
Yeah.
And
They're
you
in storage
feel
out
that
back.
way.
No.
Yeah, no. But you feel that way about certain pieces of art that you absolutely love.
Yeah.
No, you do it. And like I have a few at my house. I got one of. Do you know Ross Farbush?
Yes.
Yeah, like I bought one. I have one of her pieces. You know, and it's like just it's one of my. I'd say it's got to be one of my
Your
favorites.
favorite pieces.
Yeah, and I see and I just feel like a super connection to that one. In its place, I feel bad actually because it's outside of my daughter's room, so she gets to see it all the time. So subconsciously, my son, I got to move it onto the other wall so my son sees it.
Yeah,
but
true, yeah.
But like the connection to some of the artwork I have in my house, like you just want to
Yeah, I mean when I do my exercises in the living room, in my house now, that big farmer painting, as you referred to it. And the painter's called "We Worked So Hard."
Yeah.
But because they were migrant farmers, they were not, gentleman farmers.
Yeah.
And so that painting, I look at his face and I talk to him.
Yeah.
And I can feel him talking back to me. Now, maybe I'm crazy, but I can feel him talking back to me. And so there's this ongoing connection that I feel with this man that's been hanging in my living room. And I must have painted that painting in the late 80s.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of when it was probably late 80s is probably I graduated in 95, right? So
late 80s
you were always there.
So late 80s you were already at my house.
Put it up the day before
somebody wanted to buy it at one point, and I said, and then they said, I want to take it home to see how it'll look in my living room. I said, it's 5 by 6 feet. It's like, are you going to take it home? And
we just throw it in the back of the car.
I said, why don't you take a picture of it and then come back to the studio? And of course, open studios, sometimes people come back, sometimes they don't. But I was happy to be able to keep that one for me because that is one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah, I think at a certain point when you've lived around it for so long, right?
You can't. Now I wouldn't part with it for anything. Yeah. But then when I was a starving young artist.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And I used to tell some of the spiritual people, stop calling us starving young artists. That's putting that thought out there that we're going to be starving.
Yeah.
So please, let's call us artists and not starving artists. Yeah.
Well, we want to support artists.
We want to support the artists.
That's awesome. I think I'm excited about it. I'm going to follow through with this.
Okay.
Rita. I think I'd like to get to the museum with you and have you.
You got it.
And have that conversation. Yeah.
Last time I was there was in college, so
seeing some of the
you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go. I mean, I try to get in a few times a year.
My oldest I could probably take with me now, and he would appreciate it more so than like I always did when I was a kid growing up in the school field trips. And you're always like, rush.
Yeah. Okay, we're taking this painting. This painting.
We're gonna go this room by this time, and you gotta be. And it's like, so
and you got to be back on the bus by 2:30.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but when I was there, like I would go, like you said, the visiting. Like there'd be one I just want to see that.
I want to go back to see that particular
piece
painting,
and just because when I painted, I felt like seeing certain art helped inspire me. Classes were always. I mean, classes are good because they always make you. You got to do something for the class.
You have to do it for the class, and if it's a good teacher, they're making you think.
Yes.
They're making you go that much further. They're making you, go into your gut.
Yep.
And say, okay, what about this image?
Yep.
Whatever the image is, what about this image portrays me?
Yep.
In that. When I started doing the big portraits, which you remember, there were people that said to me, there's always a little of you in every one of those portraits.
Yeah.
One of the very first ones that I did was an African-American woman standing. She was wearing one of those T-shirts that they used to fringe the top of the sleeves. Mm-hmm. So she was wearing that, and she had like waves in her hair. And I said, somebody says, those are the same waves that you have. Maybe that's why I liked her. But but I painted her standing in front of this red van, and it was a painting that I really loved. And you would just get inspired by certain things, but you are in the painting too.
Yep.
You are not separate from it.
Yep.
If you're separate from it, it's not going to be a very good painting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think it's been fantastic.
It has been a great interview. I didn't even realize it's been an hour and 10 minutes already.
Okay, so we did our job.
I think Rita's coming back from. I think we're gonna have.
We'll have to do a part 2.
I would love to. You know, I'd do anything for you.
Oh, I appreciate that, and I mean, maybe I'm twisting people's arms to come on here and talk about stuff. I think that this is been really good. I think I wrote down community here because I think that when we have the team cut it up and pull some clips, I wanted the importance of community, supporting artists, supporting each other as far as like inspiration. I think is a good takeaway from this, and I think that me and Rita are gonna have to take a field trip to the MFA one of these days.
You got it.
And it'll hold me to get back in there and see some paintings, and I think that. That would be a fun experience, and then maybe we can have you back. We can talk about that. Yeah, you guys can have a discussion
about it. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening. And if you want to find out more about Rita, we're going to have Scott's going to work his magic. He's going to have some links in there to her Instagram, her Facebook, where you can see her pieces. You'll also have some links in there to. You're gonna have a lot of links to do. Women of wisdom.
A lot of keywords. A lot of
in the fourth floor.
Fourth floor artists. Open studio. Yeah.
I think we're gonna try to put something together. So if you heard Rita on this podcast and you want to stop by and see her at.
Open Studios.
What's the room?
Yeah,
it's 203, and it is the weekend before Thanksgiving, so it's the 19th and the 20th.
Oh, there you go.
Fantastic. So
12 to 5.
Hopefully so you don't have to get up super early. You can.
Yeah, we artists. Some artists like to sleep in a little bit.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Now we're gonna keep you here for a little while, so you don't have to walk up.
I know. I just turned around. I just looked out the window for the first time. It is really coming down out there.
Well, that's that water you were talking about.
Yeah, there you go. We need it. Let's hope it's cleansing the earth.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Rita. And
thank you so much.
I'm looking forward to the next one already.
Okay.
Scott, you want to take us out?
Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time.
All right. See ya.